Hey everyone, today we have the tier list for patch 17.5a. There is a small A patch touching a few of the top comps. They are still very dominant though, but we're going to go over each and every one of these comps in this video and cover when to play them, why to play them, and also how to play them. So let's start off in the S tier. We have Vanguard Fast 9 and Vex Fast 9. These two are by far the two most consistent comps out there. It's just two versions of different Fast 9s. And then after that, we have two Tanky Samira Reroll. I'd say two Tanky is S tier, even after the nerf. Regular Samira does just fine also. I wouldn't say regular Samira is quite S tier, but it definitely is almost there. But 2 Tanky just puts it way above and beyond. In the A tier, we got Space Groove, 4 cost comps, Stargazer Xayah, Brawler Yi, Darkstar, Mecha, all 4 cost comps. All very solid stuff. We'll tell you how to do each and every one of those. And then last up we have is the Gnar Printer comp. Very fun comp in my opinion. It is a little weird to play, but it is pretty solid. You just need a lot of life to make sure you can actually get the Gnar 3 going. In the B tier, I bumped down Corki, Riven, and Lissandra reroll. Leblanc still not too great. A lot of people out there are playing Misfortune reroll. I personally don't think it's that great. That's why it's in the B tier, but let's go on into each and every one of these comps. Let's figure out what's truly important for how to play these, and again, when to play them. So for Vanguard Fast 9, there's a standard version and the Leona version. The Leona version definitely got nerfed. I'd recommend just doing the standard version out there. This one just revolves around having 4 Vanguard as frontline, adding in Shepherd, and a bunch of other random splash traits like 2 Dark Stars, really nice. It gives you that nice little execute. But your 3 main carries are going to be either Vex, Sona, or Bard. I'd say you want 2 out of the 3 here, Vex probably being the most important one, followed by Sona, and then Bard's great at holding some utility items. After that, we have in the front line, Nunu with the mana items going to be solid for sure. That's just pretty much how you're always going to be playing Nunu. And then Blitzcrank can hold whatever leftover items you get, Thieves' Gloves being pretty nice on him. There are 10 units in this comp though. Obviously, you don't need all of them. If you're at level 9, just don't play Rost. Rost is just something you add in later. And there are also cases where you can play Graves over Vex. It is a little annoying because you need 2 types of penetration then. You need both magic and armor, which is why the Vex version is preferred because then you have everyone dealing magic damage. But sometimes you hit an early Graves, sometimes you don't have Vex items. But it's something that you could kind of exchange because Vex doesn't really have any traits. But if you ever get Teemo AP opener, item augments, or something that gives you the ability to reach Fast 9, this is going to be the comp that is going to be great for you because, yeah, if you're win streaking with item augment, or if you just have a super duper duper amount of gold, this is going to be just one of the most powerful late game comps out there, and it's going to be able to win you a ton of games. Next up we have is Vex Fast 9. This one is kind of like the mixed damage one. This one's with Vex, Fiora, and Graves. I like this build a lot because it runs Aatrox and Akali. They just save you so many items. You don't need Critical Strike, you don't need Armor Pen or Magic Pen or anything like that. And since this comp does both types of damage, it makes it really, really convenient to play them. And also Akali helps Fiora out by being a Marauder. But if you ever get melee items, if you ever get an early Graves, I kind of like this version a bit more than the first one because, yeah, early Graves is absolutely devastating to a lot of teams because you just get to buy a lot of his upgrades. There also is a no Graves version here. You just run Rost instead because, again, like a lot of these units don't have traits and, yeah, they just fit in pretty nicely after that. One thing to note is that, like, Morgana is pretty important because oftentimes Nunu is too contested because, like, half the comps in the game want Nunu. So if everyone takes your Nunu, Morgana is going to be the most important tank that you have because she's just going to be a 4-cost tank that's pretty solid. In which case, if you have her 2-star and Nunu 1-star, put the items on your Morgana instead because getting some sort of frontline is absolutely mandatory when playing this type of comp. But Rageblade Vex, 2 other items don't matter too much. Fiora, the standard package, Titan, Sterex, Bloodthirster, and then Graves. I like QSS a lot on him when I do the fighter version of Graves. You could also do backline Graves, in which case you just want to stack AD and attack speed. I do believe I have like a Graves guide down here somewhere like this, but it's going to depend on your items and kind of what's going on in your exact game. By the way, if you want to pivot into this comp, the Leblanc comp is pretty decent at this. Next up we have is 2 Tanky Samira. This comp's pretty solid because if you ever get the 2 Tanky augment, you can just hard force the comp and have absolutely 0 regrets. Once you get 2-star Ornn and Samira with an extra copy of them out there, you pretty much just auto win all of stage 3 and most of stage 4. They just literally do become 2 tanky. And in the super late game, if you could ever hit 7 Space Groove, it just gets even better after that. So if you get an emblem, it's really nice. But obviously, since you're taking the 2 tanky augment, you're not going to have as many augments to get the emblem, but it's still very hard forceable. You just need the 2 tanky augment. You also need lots of swords and a decent amount of econ. Samira pretty much likes having 3 swords. Deathblade Shojin Last Whisper is going to be the build on her. In the front line, Ornn, he likes having Stoneplate. You could solo frontline him if you want. Generally, any tank items will do though. And then Nami, she can be a good secondary carry in the late game and also a good anti-heal item holder. But if you ever get Samira dropped early, you could do the regular version, the standard version. This one's definitely not as good, but definitely still playable. But the augment doesn't show up that much, but you definitely need to know about it because if you ever get it, it's pretty much auto win. I do have like the full write-up for this guide on my website, bunnymuffins.lol/meta. And if you ever hit 3-star Samira, 3-star Ornn, you pretty much get top 4 with 2 Tanky. And if you ever get to 7 Space Groove, then you can definitely win the game. You could also win the game without it, depending on other things that are happening in your game, but that's generally the pattern I'm noticing. But it's not like a rule or anything like that. For this team comp, you definitely want to do 3-cost reroll. So that revolves around going to level 7, around stage 3-5, rolling down for Samira and Ornn 2-star, stabilizing around that. In this comp, you need to get an extra copy of them though, so you can activate 2 Tanky, so getting 4 copies of each on stage 3-5 is ideal. You don't always have to have it. Sometimes you just need one of them duplicated instead of both of them, but again, you have to scout and see how strong you need to be in your game. After that, you can econ back up to 50 gold and then slow roll until you get Samira 3, Ornn 3. By the way, whenever you are taking augments with 2 Tanky, if you ever get the duplicator one, that one is always going to be the best one to get in like stage 3 or 4 because whenever you're playing 2 Tanky, the power spike from 2-star to 3 cost is astronomical. I know in reroll comps it already is astronomical, but it's like even more astronomical when you get 2 Tanky, so getting the 3 stars become even more important. You want to be prioritizing econ augments after you get 2 Tanky at the start. But yeah, 2 Tanky can show up at stage 2 or 3. So obviously if it shows up in stage 3, don't try to pivot into this comp. You probably had to be going for Samira anyways in the beginning. But let's go on into the next comp, which is going to be the A-tier Space Groove. This one's pretty nice if you get the emblem. A lot of the other comps out there, so let's take a look back at the top because it's that important. Space Groove, Stargazer Xayah, and Darkstar, they're all reliant on getting emblems. So if you do not get the emblem for them, probably don't play them. Like you can, the comps alone without the emblem are probably like a tier below. They're in the B tier, which doesn't mean they're bad. It just doesn't mean that they are good. But I'd say they get bumped to maybe half a tier, maybe even a full tier, maybe something between that. Let's say 0.75 tiers, because it really does make them a lot better because it makes the Riven that you play in each of these comps that much better because she just gets a bunch of free stats from whatever trait you're running. So this comp, Nunu is going to be your main tank, oddly enough, because there's no good 4-cost Space Groove tank. So you could do either Nunu or Tahm Kench, depending on what items you get. If you get mana items, Nunu's going to be your guy. If you get the generic tank items, then it's going to be Tahm Kench. Another thing is that you want to just itemize up whoever you 2-star. So whether it's Nunu or Tahm Kench or Ornn, that's who you want to be focusing your items on. After that, you want to focus on Nami items. Nami really wants the Jeweled Gauntlet Double Nashers. This is just the best build by far on her, but it is a weird combination of items, so just be wary of that. You really only need 1 rod when you play this comp, oddly enough. So just because you have a main carry as an AP carry doesn't mean you want to be spamming as many rods as possible. After that, you want to focus on Riven items. Riven just takes whatever's left over because Riven can use anything, but pretty much he gets the emblem and then the 2 somewhat resilient damage DPS items, or bruiser items as people like to call them, so like Titans, BT, classic combo. But honestly, pretty much any item that makes any remote sense on Riven will work. And then the last person you want to itemize up is going to be your Blitzcrank. Once you get Blitzcrank 2, you want to put full AP on him. He's also really good at holding a bunch of the utility items for Nami because Nami needs such specific items that you don't really have room for any other utility, and also Nunu-like specific items. So if you're itemizing Tahm Kench, if you do like a Sunfire, Ionic Spark type of combo, it could work out pretty decently, but on Nunu, he definitely prefers the mana items. But Blitzcrank, if you get like the Void Staff Morello combo, gonna be pretty solid on him because he applies it pretty decently, and like he needs to hold items anyways. But yeah, pretty solid comp, very good with the emblem. Fast 8. Next one up we have is Stargazer Xayah. This one works with and without the emblem. It depends on which Stargazer one you get. Like some of them work better with the emblems. Like the ones where you need to reach like a 5, bit harder to fit in. But if there are some with 4s, like you could easily fit in the emblem, no problem. And it does make the comp a bit stronger, especially on like the ones that give econ, for example. Like one of them gives a ton of gold. And if you just have an extra emblem, you just farm like 2 more gold for every win you have, like, that's pretty good, right? That's pretty much worth an emblem, and they also get a bunch of stats as well. Like, it's just very well worth it. I'd say in the Stargazer comp, emblems aren't mandatory compared to Space Group and Darkstar, just because a power spike isn't as big, but obviously it does help a ton still. Also with the Stargazer Xayah build, there's 2 builds. There's the standard build with Nunu Tahm Kench as your main tanks, but as we saw in all the comps we looked at already, a lot of them already run both these units, so if you ever get super contested, there is a Rammus version out there. You do 3 Sniper, 3 Meeple, 3 Stargazer, Xayah as main carry, and then Rammus as your main tank. It works out because Jax and Rammus are both Bastions, and Xayah and Gnar are both Snipers, so there's a lot of overlap between these two traits. So it just makes a ton of sense to run them both together. So fast state again, Xayah, Kraken Slayer, most important item. Red buff or Rage Blade can be a good third item depending on whether you need anti-heal or not. Jhin uses IE Deathblade really well. In this comp here, you don't need Last Whisper because you're running Aatrox. If you are not running Aatrox, you need either a Last Whisper on Jhin or an Even Shroud on one of your tanks. So you can see here we have no Aatrox, but we do have the Last Whisper on Jhin. So that's pretty much how you want to run this. And honestly, like Maokai Tahm Kench are not mandatory in this. They're just a good combo because it's a pretty cheap frontline. It's a 3 and 4 cost unit that gives a lot of synergies to your team. Also, Tahm Kench is amazing because he just helps you get a lot more gold or even unit upgrades if you're so lucky. So he's just a really good unit to run in any comp that you could remotely run him in. Like Tahm Kench, probably my favorite unit of the set. I did not think I'd be saying this because I thought he was pretty boring to start with, but in terms of playing and actually like using him, I can't tell you how many games were saved just because of Tahm Kench. The only downside of him is that he doesn't have any traits. He's only a bruiser. Whenever you can run a complementary bruiser, it's nice to do and just throw him in there to get all his rewards. Like this comp, it's kind of weird because we run Maokai. Maokai's not really part of the comp, but because Aatrox Bastion, Jax's Bastion, and Aatrox gives such a good effect from his Nova ability, that's why you're able to run the Maokai plus Tahm Kench combo. But you could probably like skip these two and play other stuff. But as a generic like 4 cost level 8 roll down comp, this is going to be very good for that. But you could replace stuff with legendaries much later. For example, if you built an Even Shroud, you could take out Maokai, Aatrox, and Tahm Kench for something like a Shen, Morgana, things like that in the super late game. But most games don't reach super late game, and you mainly top 4 with comps that you hit before that. So one other thing to note is that Serpent, Boar, and Alter Stargazer constellations are probably the best. And yeah, you want to play this from AD item opener, and you need lots of bows because look at Xayah. 4 bows in this build, pretty important stuff there. Getting bow item augments work out really nicely. But yeah, you need at least 1 Kraken Slayer, like preferably 2, plus the attack speed item. So it is a little bit of a weird comp in that sense, but Pandora's items can kind of fix that sometimes. Next comp up we have is Brawler Yi. I love Yi personally, but he feels a little bit weird to play sometimes because he either kills the backline or he gets stuck on a tank. That's why I think Giant Slayer is so nice on him, because if he ever does get stuck on a tank, it helps him kill it a little bit quicker. But obviously, if he jumps to the backline, if you had like a different item onto there, would he really kill them that much faster? Yes, he would, but who really cares, because you're killing their backline to begin with. It's not going to take him that long, right? What's the difference between 1 second and 1.1 seconds? Well, it's going to be 0.1 seconds. But if he gets stuck on a tank and you do not have Giant Slayer, it's going to take him 10 seconds versus like, I don't know, like 15 seconds to kill it without the Giant Slayer. I don't know the math, right? It also depends on how strong the other tank is. But yeah, if he ever gets stuck, it's absolutely devastating. And if he jumps to the back line, you don't really care. That's pretty much what I'm trying to say. But yeah. Yi with Edge and Knight, absolutely mandatory item. Giant Slayer, mandatory. Third item doesn't matter as much. You could use one of the psionic items. You could use just a third regular item. I don't think it matters too much. But then Tahm Kench is super important because he needs to hold all your utility items. Even Shroud plus Sunfire. Third item doesn't matter. That's going to be the main core of your comp. In the super late game, you could play Fiora, or if you get one of the emblems, like Brawler Yi with the emblem is absolutely so strong. If you ever get Marauder emblem, you can play 6 Marauder really easily. Fiora is going to be absolutely smashing a lot of characters out there. And if you ever do hit a Fiora 2 and you want to play this version over here, all you have to do is take out Bel'Veth, put in the Fiora, and she's going to be dominating a lot of other people. You lose Challenger, but I think the payoff is too worth it compared to the cost of losing Challenger. I like keeping the Akali in whenever I play Fiora because it gives me critical strike chance on Fiora's ability, which I think for her is really important when she is 2-star. If she's 1-star, you could easily replace Akali if you don't want to play her, because the critical strike in this build, it isn't that important. It's obviously nice, but it's not absolutely mandatory. Mainly because Yi mainly uses attack speed. He doesn't really need the critical strike as much as other units out there, but obviously everything helps. But in this build, you like having a lot of those like frontline augments, like the augments that are like for every unit in your front line get some sort of stat. Those are going to be pretty good in this comp. Augments that need them to group together is pretty nice. Like group hug is nice because you already kind of group everyone together to begin with. Emblems are nice because Yi can use so many of them. You could play like Brawler, Marauder, Nova. Those three are probably the best ones. Like Challenger's not that great, Psionic's not that great, but they are still playable. So if you are playing this comp and you see like Trait Tree, you could just take it and YOLO it just because there are a lot of good things out there. But obviously it's best to take Trait Tree or Spreading Roots on stage 2 and then getting something good for this comp and then hard forcing it after that. That's probably going to be the best way to play it. Again, Brawler Yi, absolutely devastating. Anyone want to guess the average placement on Brawler Yi? Let's take a look. So we have to guess Master Yi's regular placement and the difference between that and Brawler Yi. I think it's going to be like, let's say 0.4 difference. So if we have Yi, type in Master Yi over here on teamfight.lol. Let's get him at Brawler Emblem. He's at a 4.26. Brawler Emblem makes him 4.06, so it's a 0.2. So I was off by quite a bit actually, but like that's a pretty big improvement, right? You compare it to any of the other items here, nothing else is as good as 4.06. If we look at the other emblems, like I'm guessing Challenger's doable, but not that great. Yeah, Nova is definitely doable. I don't think it's as bad as 4.7, but you need to change the build up a lot, so that's why it's a little tricky. I think people are not able to do that swap quite as effectively, but yeah, Brawler on him, absolutely ridiculous nonsense, and he's going to be absolutely devastating with it, but you don't need it to do well though. Like just Edge and Knight Giant Slayer, random third item. Kindred likes attack speed in the back, and then tank items on Tahm Kench. If you ever get Brawler Opener, this is really good with AD items. Brawlers with Primordian plus Briar, you use Briar as the Master Yi item holder. That's a pretty good comp to play into this. Just because Briar pretty much uses the same items. With Primordian, you get a bunch of econ, and also with Primordian, you get to play around with Brawlers because Rek'Sai's a Brawler, and then you get to easily transition into this comp, and you, of course, already run Bel'Veth for everything, so it's just a very natural comp to play that goes into this. But I like that comp a lot, but Yi sometimes does troll, so be careful of that. Next up, we have his Darkstar. This one's emblem heavy. Absolutely need Darkstar emblem because getting 6 Darkstar is just so difficult without it because you need to hit Jhin. Hitting one specific legendary is absolutely so hard to do. But what I like about this comp is that there are a bunch of different versions. I think the best version of the Darkstar emblem comp is going to be Riven followed by Ezreal and then the Xayah. So we could check this in teamfight.lol. Just throw up Darkstar emblem in the Explorer. You can see Ezreal's going to be the most popular one. Riven's going to be the best performing one, and then Xayah's going to be okay, you know, like nothing that horrible, but obviously not as good as the other two. But I don't know, Riven's just so good. Riven provides everything you need, and Riven can use any item. That's why I like Riven. If you're running Ezreal, you need to handpick Ezreal's items, which are really difficult to do. But for this rogue build, like you just build Kai'Sa items, which can be switched to Jhin or Karma later. And then you have the Darkstar emblem for Riven, and then the other two items, they literally don't matter. They could be anything. That's why I like this so much. But yeah, pretty much it's just another fast 8 comp. Get a 4-cost tank. Probably going to be Nunu in most of these cases. Tahm Kench can sometimes be played also. And then snowball your early game with IE on Kai'Sa. And she's going to be doing a lot of carrying in stage 2, 3, and sometimes early parts of stage 4. Once you get the Darkstar emblem, getting 6 Darkstar spikes your comp because you just get 2 very solid tanks in the Darkstar black holes. And then once you get Jhin, he's a nice little finisher. He gives a lot of utility to your team because he reduces their armor and magic resistance by 10%. And also, like, if you have items for him, he definitely can use them as well. But next comp up we have is going to be the 6 Mecha comp. This comp is rising up a bit. I like it a lot personally because you just have a lot of different carry options. Like if you have items for this, it works out great. If you don't, then it's horrible. But for the mech, you need absolutely need Stoneplate. Also, if you ever get anima items, this makes this comp even better because the anima items are really powerful, and each of the mecha units take up 2 unit slots when you activate the mecha on them, and when that happens, items matter more, right? So that's why it kind of works out that way. On Ezreal, I like the Jeweled Gauntlet Rabadon's Death Cap combo. Third item going to be a crit item, most likely going to be Guard Breaker. Urgot likes IE, and then you need to throw utility on some of the other random units. But yeah, artifact items, radiant items, any of that stuff, really good. There's one prismatic augment that gives 4 artifact items. It's the one where like you get an artifact item at the start and then you get 3 of them once you reach, I think it's below 35 health. That one's really good in this comp because have so many units that can utilize them, and you could pretty much use anything that comes out of it, like almost anything. Obviously there's some troll ones, but it is what it is. Living Forge also really nice for this, but like Radiant items too. Like getting Radiant items on this, absolutely devastating. Also, the Stoneplate augment is really nice on this. That one gives you a super duper duper tanky mighty mech. But yeah, you just fill in the rest of the traits here. You have Tahm Kench for Brawler with Urgot. Tahm Kench also gives you a lot of upgrades. Getting upgrades super important in this comp too. We haven't played 6 Mecha in a while, but getting 2-star Acel and Mighty Mech means you get 4 2-star 4 costs, because again, they count as 2 units. So getting something like Tahm Kench, which either gives you gold or the unit itself, makes it so much easier because you just get the biggest power spike in the world. Karma gives Voyager, Fiora gives Marauder, Mordekaiser gives Darkstar, and Conduit. I'd say in order of importance, the complementary traits, because obviously you're running Mighty Mech, Urgot, and Acel. These are going to take up 6 unit slots, but because you have 6 mecha in, you get an extra unit slot. So let's say they take up 5 unit slots. So if you're level 8, you have 3 more slots. What are you going to play? I like Tahm Kench because of the rewards he gives. You don't really need Fiora, and oftentimes you don't have Fiora to begin with because she's a 5 cost. It's kind of hard to get. So you'd probably want to prioritize Tahm Kench, Karma, and Mordekaiser after that to fill out your level 8, and then once you hit level 9, then you add in the Fiora. Because again, you don't really care that much about Marauder because your main carry is going to be Acel. Urgot's kind of going to be secondary. But there are going to be some games where you get 3-star Urgot with these 2 4-cost units as well. Maybe there are lesser champion duplicators that drop for you. Maybe there are no Master Yi players who are taking your Urgots from you. Some games you just get a lot of Urgots. Those are going to be the games where you want to play the Marauder early. And yeah, Urgot absolutely smacks everyone. Like, it's actually crazy what he can do at 3-star with an IE. He just autos, kills, auto kills, auto kills, and yeah, on squishies at least. On tanks, he might take a couple of autos, but as a 3-star 3 cost, he is so powerful. I really like this comp a lot, but it is a bit spiky to play because like reinforcement really good because again, your 4 costs count for 2. But next build up we have is going to be the Gnar printer build. This build is a little weird, I won't lie. It's a little tricky as well, because I feel like a lot of people misplay this comp because you need a lot of life in order to wait for your Gnar to actually print, because it takes a long time to get him to print. But pretty much what you need is just like attack speed and AD items on your Gnar, and then at least I think it's like 5 copies on him. That way you have enough time to print a couple more copies of Gnar. Obviously, if you have a duplicator, it helps. Like, you know those games we just get those random duplicators at the start and you're like, I don't like any of the reroll comps out there, what should I play? This is kind of one of them you could kind of go into because you can actually make use of it, and it just helps you spike 2 turns earlier because that's how long it takes to print this Gnar. Each Gnar costs 2 turns. But pretty much what you want to do is just play generic AD at the start of the game. Worst case scenario, if you don't get a lot of Gnars, you could just play Corki Riven, like the Meeple comp. That's absolute worst case scenario, right? But in a best case scenario, you get a lot of extra copies of Gnar. No one plays him, right? So you could get him pretty easily and then get 7 Meeple early in stage 4. Sometimes you could even get it in stage 3, but that is like super lucky. Like most likely you're going to get it in stage 4 unless you have Meeple emblem. And then you just let Gnar print. That's all you have to do. Once he gets a 3-star, he's like a very serviceable carry, and you pretty much have like, I'd say he's equivalent to like slightly better than a 4-cost 2-star carry. That's what he feels like. I don't know the exact like math or whatever. And because Meeple just gets access to that so easily, it's just a very nice thing to do. But after that, Rammus main tank, Corki or Bard secondary carry, depends on which one you hit, and also depends on whether you have AP or AD items. Rest of your team's going to be the Meeples. They're going to be on your board most of the game because you need to print Gnars. It takes a while for it. But once you get it, you could drop some of them. Like you could drop Fizz. Some games you don't get Bard or Corki 2-star. And then you can play legendaries in their place. If you ever get Dragon from Bard, it's really nice to put in because like the 7 Meeple trait, it's not really that important, you know? Assuming you have Gnar 3-star already, because you're not going to be printing other units because you just don't have time to do it. So if you get Gnar 3, drop down to 5 Meeple. You could play Dragon if you get it from Bard. That's like the best thing to absolutely play. But you could just fill it in with random 4 and 5 cost units like Morgana can be used. Jhin can be used. He's already in this comp. But you could also do 4 Bastion. You could put in Ornn plus Shen. Pretty good combo there. There's a lot of things you could do, and it works out pretty nice. You could also hard force this comp if you ever get Meeple emblem, like because it just makes getting to 7 Meeple a lot easier. Normally to get to 7 Meeple, you need to hit both Rammus and Corki 1-star, and that's kind of hard to do sometimes at level 7. So if you ever get the +1 Meeple emblem. Sometimes you get one of these early on, and then you could start printing in stage 3, which makes this accelerate so much faster. And yeah, it's just really good comp. Pretty solid, but it is like weird because you need to get 7 Meeple in as early as possible, and you need like, I'd say like 5 Gnars when you start printing. That way you don't take too long. That's going to take 8 turns because 4 more Gnars needed to get to 3-star. 4 times 2 equals 8. 8 more turns to get your comp online, and that's like a pretty long time, right? So you need a lot of health to make this work. You're not gonna like lose every round though, right? Like, but maybe you'll lose like 5 out of 8 of them or 6 out of 8 of them, maybe 4 out of 8, and you need to kind of count your life total before you get there. But again, you're not gonna lose every round. You might even win a lot of them if you have everything else upgraded, right? But 7 Meeple, like, it doesn't give that much combat stats compared to the other 7 traits out there or historically in TFT. So that's just something you gotta look out for. But yeah, those are gonna be the S and A tier comps. This is like the regular Meeple comp if you want to play this instead of the Gnar one. Like, it definitely is viable also. But pretty much like, what should you do in this patch? I'm gonna be coming out with an opener guide in a couple of days, but Fast 9 is going to be the go-to thing if you can do it, but it's not going to happen in every game. Maybe like 2 out of 10 games you could get a really good Fast 9 in. Maybe 1 more out of 10 games if you want to like really force it. So that's like 3 out of your 10 games that you're playing this week. Ideally, one of the other 10 games you get 2 tanky, you just hard force this. So what do you do in those other 6 games? Well, you play one of the 4 cost comps and try to flex around them, depending on your openers, depending on your items. Like if you have Brawlers, go Yi. If you have Space Groove, go Space Groove. If you get one of the emblems, hard force any of these comps. If you get a bunch of artifact and radiant items, Mecha is something to consider. Or if you get Anima into Mecha, that's going to be something to consider. If you get a lot of Gnars, go Gnar. So those 6 out of 10 games, that's where the elo is going to happen. That's where you're going to climb, because like these other games, those like 3 out of 10 games or 4 out of 10 games from the S tiers, like those are a like top 4s, top 3s, even wins, you know, and they're pretty easy to do because when you're doing Fast 9, that meant you are win streaking every single game. You're like 10 streaking. So you're like 100 life, stage 4-1, and you just get to sack the next couple rounds, reach level 9 on 4-5, roll down like 70 gold, 50 gold, whatever it is, hit everything 2-star, and like, yeah, you win those games, right? 2 tanky, you just hard force it. So you just put the comp in your team planner and you don't care about anything else after that. So if you ever get one of these, like you don't really need to play that much TFT, but again, those 6 out of 10 games where you're looking for directions, looking for what to do, that's going to be where the LP is going to be gained. So make sure you know these comps. Website is available with like full guide, bunnymuffins.lol/meta. And make sure you're playing them at the right times, because a lot of people don't play the comps at the right times and they say like, hey, I hit the comp, I got 8th or whatever. But the thing that they don't say is that like they might have the wrong items for them at the start of the game. They might not have had the right units at the start of the game. So they end up just lose streaking with it and having like minus 40 health compared to playing it from the right spots, you know? That ends up being the mistake I see the most whenever I watch people play. So you just gotta play things at the right time. Like if you don't get the right parts, you're not gonna be able to play the comp. That's just how TFT works, especially with augments, especially with emblems, especially with how optimized the game has become over time, because the spread of information became very, very fast. And TFT pretty much is an information game. But that's going to be it for me today. Hopefully you all enjoyed this video. Let me know if you have any questions down in the comments below, and I hope to see you all in the next video.